I believe back in January of 2009, we were finishing up an evening meal downstairs that we feed to the homeless or anybody that comes by in the community that are hungry.
Sometimes I do a special on certain days. I'll fix a special. I'll surprise them and give them a special. Last week I had turkey dinner. I had a great turkey dinner, and everybody was in.
We serve a dinner and a lunch, and we found that at the end of the dinner, there would seem to be a couple of men that were hanging around trying to find chores to do, and it was like they didn't want to leave, and it was kind of cold out for that time of year. I mean, you know, sometimes January is a little bit warmer and sometimes it's a little bit colder. But my husband asked them, said, where are you all staying for the night? And they said, well, last night we stayed next to a car wash covered up with cardboard and old carpet remnants that they had found in a dumpster. And he'd come over to me and he said, I didn't discuss this with you, but I've got to do something. I've got to do something. These men stayed out in the cold last night. He said, so I told them to bed down in the fellowship hall. And he said, we've got to help them. He said, they'll die out there. And it was amazing that it just kind of started from there. People that was out on the street homeless that had no place to go were finding out that, hey, there was a place here to come and eat, a place to get out of the elements of the weather. And they began to come, and before long, we were actually having to bring people upstairs in the sanctuary to place them because the weather was so bad. And it started from there, and it's grown, and it's just amazing how God will work. One lady came in with her 3 children, and she told the pastor, she said, if it had not been for you, said me and my children especially, would not have had a hot meal today. And that being said, with tears in her eyes, you know that you're doing the work of God, you're doing the work for the needy as God called us to do. I'm starting to see some changes in their lives. They're getting goals back in their mind. They're looking for jobs. They're getting excited, and they're desiring more than their current situation. So I know that this shelter and the food outreach is so much more than what we could actually envision it to be. We've seen some of them come back and say they found jobs, found placement to stay. One fellow has come back and he's helped out at the desk as the night watchman. And I mean, you can see God's hand changing their lives slowly but surely. Husband's always said that this church is like the bumblebee. Scientists say that the bumblebee should not be able to fly, but it does. We don't receive any funding. We don't receive any assistance. What does happen is everything that we get goes into these ministries. Since he's been pastor here, he's not taken a paycheck. Everything here is volunteer only, because we believe that what God's got moving here, all the monies need to be funneled toward that and getting it going, getting it out there. You know, our electric bill, it'll go sky high, but yet we try to do what we can do to make it maintainable to where it's affordable. God's never left us. He's never seen us forsaken. He's always been there, and it's amazing that he's met our bills. But like I said, this is all volunteer. Nobody receives a paycheck, and God's just been good.
Since we opened, we have fed over 200,000 hot meals across our counter, and that's probably in the high 200s now. That was the last count about 3 years ago. So we're probably if we're not over 300, we're probably pushing 300,000 hot meals now. We've sheltered over 14,000 sheltered nights now to this current time, and we have given away over 500,000 pounds of food out the door to help those in need. And she's right. You say everything we got funnels back towards keeping people alive. You know, we ain't capable of helping with electric and other utilities and stuff like that, but we make sure you got a warm place to sleep. We make sure you got food on your table. We feed on average probably 65, 70 meals for lunch, and again 65, 70, 80. Usually it's more for dinner because the children are home from school, so the numbers go up. So we feed a lot of children in addition to the adults, but we feed anywhere between probably 40 and 70 meals for lunch, and anywhere between probably 50 and 80 meals for dinner. So it fluctuates with the time of month and the time of season.
Somewhere in their life, something has triggered. It's been triggered to the point that it's altered their perception of how life has to be. We've dealt with people that are homeless because their wife and child was killed in a car wreck, and they just couldn't deal with the heartache and deal with the stress and the depression, and so it's like they couldn't perform on the job, and so they ended up losing their house. And you know, statistics say that everybody in America is one paycheck away from being homeless. One paycheck. And These people have drug addictions, yes. They have alcohol addictions, yes. Some of them can be right down mean, but what the Bible says, what you do to the least of these, you've also done unto him. I find it amazing that when you do pull up to a stop sign or a stoplight and you see somebody flying a sign, what goes through somebody's mind? Well, if I give them money, they're going to go drink. And, you know, it's more than that. You have to get to the issue as to why they're out there. What got them to that point? And I never will forget one really cold night. Our numbers were really high. It was snowing outside, and I think they was just calling it was frigid temperatures, just as bad could be for this time of year. And our sanctuary was full. We had cots on both walls, and it was just the right time to sit down with a couple of guys and try to figure out, you know, what brought you here to this place in your life? Why are you here? And they knew we wasn't being disrespectful, but some of them would say, well, I came home from work. My wife had put the stuff out on the steps and she left, and so just didn't feel like life was worth staying in an empty house. Or one would say their wife and their child got killed, they were murdered. You know, these people do have a story, and a lot of times we end up hearing the story and trying to minister. They got to know that there's a way out. There's something better than what they are experiencing. And a lot of people find it amazing when I tell them some of the stories that happen here. They'll just shake their head, wow, I didn't know that, and it's a great work. Yeah, it's a great work, but it takes a lot of time. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of dedication. And the one thing that people don't want to hear about, it takes money.
Yep.
Our electric bill alone, just in the good months of summer, will run between $1,200 and $1,600. And it's amazing that it would cost that much, but it's a big building. We do make sure that we keep food on hand downstairs in the freezers, and that will run up your electric bill. But our worst times are coming because winter months are coming. That's our most needy time of year when it's the coldest. You know, they'll come in with wet feet, so we have to try to find somebody that will bring some socks for us to give to them. They'll need dry underclothes, undergarments, and t-shirts. And just the other day, they brought it out in the news that the Farmer's Almanac has predicted a really frigid winter. And that being placed in my mind, what I read, I began to think about, what if we had to turn somebody away? God forbid, I don't want to have to turn anybody away and read about it or find about it the next day that they found them dead somewhere. Because if they can't find a place to stay, they end up breaking the law and they go into these houses just looking for a place out of the element. And it's not a safe place, but at least here we can give them a safe place. Mm-hmm. Our ultimate goal is to get the shelter out from underneath the church and into another building. That way we could be more able to facilitate more of their needs, to offer them some schooling. You'd be surprised the number of people that come through the door that are homeless and can't read, they can't write, they can't use a computer. And we all know this day and time, you have to be able to have some kind of computer skills to even be considered for a job. And we have the people that want to come in and be able to offer this and want to do it as a volunteer. But it's the fact that we don't have the room, we don't have the finances to go out there to get the building. And you know, it doesn't matter how much you give, God will make it go a long way. God can do a lot when He's in it. And to know that we've been open this long with the shelter, you know God's in it. Yep. Bills have been met because God's in it. God's been moving, people have been saved, their lives are being forever changed. They're coming back to the house of God to worship. And it's just amazing what you're seeing God do behind the scenes, even when you don't think anything's happening, anything's changing. And it's amazing that sometimes you will look toward the future and knowing how bad it's going to be. Are we going to be able to be there for them? Are we going to be able to meet their need?
But I'm thankful for all the ones that we've got to help along the way. I really am. I mean, we've helped lots. I mean, more people, and this sounds terrible. There's more people that we've helped than I can remember names. Yeah. There's lots of people come out of jail, got a job, got their own apartment, got 2 cars, now supervisor role. Some people want to make a difference, and if you work hard, they'll make a difference. Some people have it in them.
It can be tasked sometimes, or it could just be really arduous. But at the end of the day, it's what you do for the Lord that's going to count, that will remain on your record, what you did for Him. And we're just in need of help. We're in need of support. We're in need of financial support. In need of, we're going to need some clothing this winter coming. Need some socks, some shoes, some boots.
Underwear, deodorant.
you name it,
toothpaste.
it's going to be needed. And you know, sometimes you just hate to ask for finances because everybody's just they're sick and tired of hearing, well, if you give. Well, this thing don't operate. You can't send AEP a note and say, we're sorry we can't pay the bill this month, but we fed a lot of homeless people. This bill's got to be paid. It's got to be met, and we need some help this winter. We're coming up on a time that looks like it has the potential to take in a whole lot more people because it's going to be needed with this weather that they're anticipating happening. And, you know, with God, all things are possible, but, you know, faith without works is dead. This is us putting our faith into action, asking you to help and do what you can, do your part. It's a good ministry to put your money into. Like I said, it all goes toward the outreaches of helping people. When people give us clothes, if we can't give it away in a certain amount of time, we'll make sure one of the missions get it to put it back out there in the community. So, I mean, we want to help those who are in need, but we're just going to have some assistance this season.
We definitely need a bigger facility than what we got. I mean, we can't offer any classes. We can't help anybody to get better education where we are. I mean, because where they sleep is also where we feed. So they got to get up, rip it down, clean it up. You know, and I've often told people, if you don't want to give money, you ask me for which bill you want to pay, and I'll give you the bill. All you need is the account number, and you can send it in. I mean, I'm not above handing you the bill and say, here's a bill to pay. If you're afraid to give money, I'll give you the bill. But I mean, everything everybody gives. I mean, we have zero overhead other than the lights. That's the only overhead we got. I mean, there is no salaries here, and I don't know how to explain it. I mean, we don't put it in our pocket. We don't build a mansion with it. We help people with it.
You know what? They're no different than you and I. They're just stuck in a place and need some help and a way out. And that's what we're needing help with, a way out.
Help us.
Help them.
Don't you know that when you're down to nothing, God said, I've got more than what you need. I've got leftovers if you want them. You just gotta come and consume what I'm giving you now. This is not just for the now, but it's for your trip. If your trip's going to be a long journey, get up and eat. Man or woman of God, get up and eat. Isn't it amazing that of all the things that Joshua could have done, Joshua could have ran them through with a sword. Joshua could have cut their head off. Joshua could have dismembered them, put them in severe agony. But he told the men at the top of the ranks, come over and put your feet on their neck. It's time for us to do more with our feet than stomping and having a pity party. Why me, God? Why me? And throwing a 3-year-old fit when you don't get your way. Don't you know when the Bible says, for we know that all things work together for the good? For the good? It's not for your detriment. It's not to kill you. It's not to destroy you. But all things will come together at the perfect point in time that God has ordained, orchestrated, and set aside. And once you realize that, you'll be able to bring that sucker out, identify him for who he is, what he's done, step on his neck, and declare it to be no more. Amen. God has already ordered certain things